All right, welcome back. Well, keeping our focus on security concerns in the country. Well, I know that the 3 policemen and the civilian who were killed concerning that Taraba fleeing kidnap kingpin, as the police have described him. So that matter still very much out there. We'll be starting with that today. We're joined by Colonel Hassan Stanlabo, who is a retired Army officer. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thanks so much.
Well, I'm sure it was, I don't know, lots of people were shocked when they heard that story about these gentlemen. Unfortunately, the IRT team who have done a job previously. But when you even read it and so on, what came to your mind?
Well, if you ask me what came to my mind, first of all, I want to say there was a serious failure of coordination, a serious failure in terms of operational cooperation and synergy. And we've always talked about this. There is a need for the services to be able to talk among themselves, and because I expect that an operation as this, where you are sharing operational space with another service, to a greater extent, I agree it's a covert operation, and so the level of exposure must be highly limited. But all the same, you must let those on ground, I'm going by the stories that came out now, none of us was there. You must let those on ground to be in the know that, look, we are coming for this. You might not mention the name of whom you are coming to pick. You might not mention what particular spot you are going to, but let them know we shall be operating within this general area. And this, that, and that. And when you are sending such information, don't just send it to the boys on ground. Speak with their command. Their command will speak to them. With all I gather in this, it's like, I don't even know if the battalion commander was even in the know, not to talk of the brigade commander or whoever was wholly in charge of that operations. Okay, but so far only one captain has been mentioned and so on. And when you restrict such information to somebody like that, he could misbehave on ground. But when his boss has spoken to him, he knows my boss is aware of this.
In the circumstance, some of the questions that also come up, even though we'll look at what the police have released concerning this information. The question that came up at that time, and is still relevant today, is that when the police say, look, we are going on this covert operation, the way it comes across is that, do they have to inform the army authorities that this is what we're doing?
If you are sharing operational space, if you don't inform me and I hear gunshots, I shouldn't react. If you don't inform me and somebody calls me to say they are picking up somebody here and here, wouldn't I react? But when I get such a call, when I've been informed, I'll say, okay, it's all right, we'll see what we can do. And I drop the phone. I know my sister services are operating.
When you say sharing operational space, what do you mean? Is the police and the army, are they supposed to be sharing operational space in the real sense?
Let us be realistic here. The reality today in Nigeria is that the military finds itself involved in internal operations. Am I right? However, we know that the lead agency is the police, and we must give it to them. So in most cases, the military comes in when the police is overwhelmed or needs some backup and so on. The reality on ground in Nigeria is that we find the military doing police duties. And that's why some of us keep saying, look, there is unemployment in the country. Can you just engage people? Pick most of these young boys, bring them into the police. By now, our police force should be about 1 million strength. Well-trained guys. So you wouldn't have the need to be committing the military into police duties.
Okay, now, you also talked about, sharing information.
Yes, please.
Apparently, the police must have had very many covert operations that didn't go awry. What do you think, beyond this sharing of information, what do you think happened in this case?
Well, if information was not shared, what will go wrong could only be left to your imaginations. Given the way your sister service within that space would want to, what lines of actions they want to take when they are probably informed or whatever.
Some other people would probably say, look,
yes,
this looks like some coordinated, attempts to help this kingpin. Because from all obvious indications, some believe that, look, policeman died, the real suspect escaped. So some could have said, there's some form of collusion, somewhere.
Nothing can be taken away. I'm trying to say you may be right. In every 12, there is a Judah. You could be right. I've been involved in operations, so I know what I'm saying. You could be right. Okay. All right?
Now that we're talking about information sharing, I'd like to paint a scenario for you based on what one of the dailies reported this morning. Now, this is what they said. When the policemen were going to make the arrest on their way into that area, the report says, or the account says, they actually met with the soldiers at the checkpoints and they exchanged pleasantries on their way to making the arrest. So when they were coming back, according to the dailies, they went past the first checkpoint, they saw the guys they met earlier, they exchanged pleasantries, they moved on. To the second point, they were recognized again and they moved on until they got to the third checkpoint. So don't you think that was information shared in some way?
I started by saying here that, look, you don't just go to the ground and begin to talk with foot soldiers. Let their command be in the know. I'm talking from a practical experience. Let their command be in the know. If I know my battalion commander, my brigade commander has said, look, this is going to happen, be on standby in case you are called to avail assistance. Or avail them whatever assistance they need. I dare not do anything funny because I know my boss is waiting to know the outcome. But when you come talking to me and the entire lines of action to be carried out is within my ambit, I take full discretion and initiative. I do what I want to do. If I have been cooperating on ground with certain bad elements, I go ahead.
Are you by this absolving?
But whatever the case, sorry, sir. Whatever the case, I think we should await the outcome of the various investigations that are ongoing.
But the information
will unravel a lot.
But the information out there are some of the ones that we're just interrogating and taking a look at.
Yes, of
because
course.
It's raising so much concerns.
Of course.
At the
I'm
point,
equally embarrassed anyway.
When you say that they needed to share information in order to ensure things go wrong.
Yes.
But just as my colleagues have highlighted, at the point of making the arrest, everything looked to have gone well. After they had merged with the victim, it was on their way out. And don't forget, the narrative was that they passed the first checkpoint.
Yes.
The second.
Yes.
And then at the third. But we all go through checkpoints in this country. We know how it is that if you to go past the first military checkpoint and go past the second and the third before you then open fire, there are several loose ends there. Because the man will tell you, you can't even go past the first one if you have a suspect and they let you go. Does that happen?
Chamberlain, we are on the same page. I don't see why we're arguing.
No.
I have said it, yes.
Well,
maybe we're just analyzing the entire
issues,
situation. I have already said it here that, look, in a situation where you have only revealed or shared this information with the foot soldiers. I remember in Liberia, maybe I should just cite a small scenario. We operated within a given space where there was so much kidnapping. You know how the Liberian situation was? Terrible, extremely terrible. We operated in an area where there were so much kidnappings and abductions and so on. If there was a need for an outside service to come into our general location to carry out operations as that, and so on, it was often well coordinated. Immediately the commander informs the brigade commander to the company commander, the platoon commander, and so on. Now the entire command is aware. I have had the cause to be in charge of men at certain roadblocks. Then I was a bloody second lieutenant or a lieutenant. To be at certain roadblocks and so on. And I remember very vividly, this was often our signs, because we were often told the color of the vehicle that was forthcoming, what type of vehicle, and so on. We went to the point of even saying, beam 3 lights when you are approaching us. So once we see those 3 lights, all I just do is this, and the boys will clear the way. And you see the vehicles will be passing with top speed, because you don't have to stop them. As they were coming, they know, yes, you are in the know. We were told only one vehicle, for instance, in our own case. So if there's any other vehicle behind, it must be stopped. If the instruction says 2 vehicles, the boss will be accompanied by another vehicle, color black, this. You make sure once that one passes, every other vehicle undergoes the normal check. were all these taken into consideration? That's why we tell you, speak with the high command.
Earlier
Yeah,
you said
but-
you were embarrassed.
Yes, of course.
Why?
Embarrassed because look at services. Look at what followed after the whole incident. The police will come out with its own bulletin. The army will come out with its own bulletin. Oh my God. I think the situation could have been better managed. All right?
Sorry.
Without actually so much exposure to the media the way it went. Even if the media was in the know, both services would have just kept mute, talk in the background, set up their investigations, and then eventually the public will be addressed. The whole issue is being investigated by the IG, it's been investigated by this and that, and so on. Rather than all this exchange.
Earlier
It portrays
also,
us in a terrible way, which I wouldn't really...
Earlier also you said it should be given to the police as the lead agency
yes.
within
Yes.
the confines of the nation.
Yes, internal security.
Internal security.
Yeah.
In this regard, do you think it was given to the police?
How would it have been given to them when they have not informed you?
But shouldn't it be the police taking responsibility for internal security even at that point?
Of course, but who deployed the military there? Isn't it the same government that is also aware that the police should be there? I've told you that the reality on ground, as we speak, is that the military is involved in internal security duties.
Yeah, well, that's the case. That's what we've seen. But
So you must take that reality into cognizance.
But the other thing about that is this, still on the information that is out there
Yes,
from what
please.
we've seen.
Yeah.
You know, we got here because, I mean, you haven't been in the service. When they pass the first checkpoint, and then the second, that suggests that, look, for them to have gone through the first and the second, they must have checked and seen, okay, well, everything seems okay here. They might have identified the people who were going with the suspect, the first and the second checkpoint, even the third, after which they opened fire. And then, having been in international operations as well, number one question was that, do you think that there might have been communication between one checkpoint, the second, and the third? Because these military officials have communication from one checkpoint to the other, don't they?
There should be.
There should be.
Yes.
So, should there have been any reason, what do you think may have gone wrong if you pass the first, the second, and that communication equipment is there? If something was wrong, should you have passed the second, then the third?
I guess maybe the media report I read is maybe the same one you read, which is making you say this because you've painted the picture of all what I read. But one aspect you have not added is that aspect where it was said that when eventually the military captain was informed that his friend has been taken and so on, and they had already passed the first checkpoint, second checkpoint, so information had to go to the third checkpoint that they should halt them. That was what the report which I read. So if that was what happened, it takes care of what you're saying. It means that probably the first checkpoint felt, no, they have been here, they've chatted with us, so we know them, let them go on. And the second checkpoint, the same. And even if the third checkpoint, probably they've had a chat with them, but now their boss is saying, halt that vehicle, get it down, and so on. And if the vehicle forcefully passes, moves on, believing that we've had a chat, so we have, what's it called now? Freeway, what's this terminology used? Right of way, and they move on. Then probably those guys open fire, believing probably what their boss may have told them, that those are kidnappers, get them down.
Now, leading to some of these questions which the police is asking the army now. Now, assuming, they were sharing operational space, they should coordinate among themselves. Now, if they rescued, quote unquote, the person who was alleged to have been kidnapped, the Alhaji Hamisu Balawadume. So, assuming he was rescued by the army, in the circumstance, after all this while, what should police have done? Do they keep the person to themselves or hand over to the police?
Of course, you hand him over to the police. If eventually you discover that, like you claim, that they were kidnappers, but you eventually discover that, oh, the police actually came in for this, and this is actually the kidnapper, and Alhaji Hamisu's name is well known. It's not a name that has not been highly publicized because it's been said that he has been involved in several things. then you hand him over to the police. But the army is saying the guy is not in their possession.
Wow. And the police don't seem to buy that because he was in handcuffs.
Of course, and that's why...
Leg chain, then they rescue him, then they don't know where he is.
And, well, there are lots of questions that one would have loved to ask, but the point is that we must await the outcome of the investigations. And that's why I'm happy that besides the Inspector General and the COAS that have all set up investigation teams, the Chief of Defense Staff too has come up with an investigation team, even though that is not prudent, that we have about 3 investigations ongoing.
Colonel, don't forget that there's been several scenarios that has involved Army and the police.
Yeah.
Until date, we haven't seen any major things. So the media can speak about some of these things and ask questions. Nothing wrong with that, as a matter of fact. But we also do have Fatai Owosheni, a former commissioner of police. He's been in Lagos, he's been in Benue. He joins us on the line this morning to give us his impression of what he thinks went or is going on at the moment. Good morning, Mr. Owosheni. Thank you for joining us today. Could you just quickly give us your impression? What do you think may have gone wrong in this event?
Good morning, the channel's crew. To an extent, I followed what has been discussed in the open, in the media especially, by the 2 institutions, the Nigeria Police and the Nigerian Army. For the one fact that I would want to emphasize is the fact that it seems as if institutions work at cross purposes. It is unthinkable, and of course, some of the explanations that have been offered also sound ridiculous. It is sad for the country that institutions that are supposed to work hand in hand in a complementary manner are now doing as if they're competing. It's very difficult to conclude now because investigations panels have been set up, but also that's a wrong step. From the narrative you have given, 3 different investigation panels have been set up by different institutions and of the same government. There should be one investigative panel that will have respected people, maybe some retired officers to be brought in. But some of the explanations that the Nigerian Army had offered don't sound as if that is professional and in terms of operation. You can't say that, oh yes, this team refused to stop, you pursued them, the vehicle tumbled, and 3 people were killed at the go. Even if they were kidnappers, I think there must be a kind of caution that will be done, because I don't want to believe that those guys would just keep quiet when they were being fired. Some of them would have been making noise. And if there's a senior officer there who would have said, okay, yes, these people were making us at the policemen. Can't we check this thing out? So I actually, there are so many questions to be asked, as everybody has been saying, but it has come to show that the institutions are not working together. And it is high time that the institutions, especially the Nigerian Army, drop these conclusion that they are a superior institution to other institutions. Every other institutions within the security that comes in within the security architecture, has a role defined. They have their mandate. And of course, if everyone sticks to his mandate, all this will not happen. Everyone also knows that when it comes to internal security, that is why I personally, with my 35 years experience, I've always felt that all these things that happen and they say, yes, army will be deployed on the road, joint operation should be held and whatever. The rules of engagement of the institutions are different. There are occasions that you will coordinate, you will do a lot of planning. But on the field is a different thing. That you have a joint operation that has the police and the army especially, not the whole military in all. That you have probably a deputy superintendent of police come in a patrol vehicle. And of course, you have somebody from the Nigerian army who is probably of a second lieutenant or whatever. And there will be a situation that you need to deploy. And the other person, the guy from the Nigerian army will say, oh, yes, DSP, I'm not going to go with you until I get an instruction from my home commander. It doesn't speak well. That makes us to work at cross purposes. And the two institutions are trained differently. So the government, apart from finding exactly what happened in this situation, we need to redefine. At the senior level, we sit down together, we plan an operation, and when you get to the field, the other people will do a different thing. And of course, when you complain, in most cases, the Nigerian army will tell you that, oh yes, this is what our boys are trained to do. Even common courtesy, some occasions will arise and they will say, look, we are not trained to be inferior to any institution. And that is why sometimes all these joint operations are unnecessary and they don't work. And before now, there have also been cases. There was a case in Badagry where a police DPO also went to go and have conversation with a view to rescue an officer. And he was battered, he was decimated. Nobody has said something, anything up to now. There have been situations like that. I think we must tell ourselves the truth. The truth must be told that the Nigerian army should always not think that there is a superior institution to other institutions. Because even within the military, if you have the Nigerian army, you have the Nigerian Navy, you have the Air Force, you still see this competition there. So this is probably from the background that these things are coming from. I don't think it is appropriate. It is unacceptable that in this case such a thing happened and lives were wasted like that of people that are serving the country. People have mentioned it. What of the kidnapper as well? There have been so many things being spread. I was in Benue State. We saw some of those things. There have been so many insinuations that they would say, okay, yes, one institution is aiding kidnappers, aiding armed robbers, and whatever. We need to go beyond what just happened recently. There have been so many cases of this nature that nothing has been done. And it's not because I'm a policeman. There have been so many killings like this that somehow, the response to them is not good. Look at Alakio in Nasarawa State, where almost 70 policemen were killed. Nobody has said anything. There was a panel of inquiry that came up with a finding that indicted some people. And the families of these policemen, it is sad because that was an institution that I worked for 35 years, and I have seen it right from way back 1986. I've been part of offices that are written so many about these things that are happening, and nothing concrete has been done. There have been cover-up in some cases. So if this is going to be where the government will come up with something tangible and see how to stop this madness, it is not right. It's not even this time around that we have security challenges and we should be complementing each other's efforts.
All right, Mr. Woshini. Well, I appreciate your thoughts this morning. Thank you for talking to us today. Fatai Woshini, former Commissioner of Police in Lagos as well as Benue. But we will be back in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. Well, you heard what Mr. Woshini said there about what had happened previously and how he feels. There's just that deep-seated hurt between some members of the force, the police force.
Yeah, I listened to the police commissioner retired. As a matter of fact, I would not want to ascribe these unfolding developments to say the Army's exercise of superiority complex or whatever. No. Instead, I want to see it from the perspective of the nature of training of the soldier and that of the policeman. And that's why some of us really are against this idea of bringing in the military into internal security space. But then, there is nothing that can be done. What the nature of our training as soldiers is shoot to kill. You bring a man who is trained on shoot to kill into an operation where he's expected to shoot to maim, which is the training of that of the police. The soldier, when he goes to the range, he is trained to aim the heart of his target, which we refer to as the bull. If you shoot here, you've not gotten the bull. You get your full mark when you hit the bull, which is the left-hand side of the guy, the target. Shoot to kill. You don't waste ammunition. So when you bring such a man into a place like this, and you tell him, and there is an order that bring down that vehicle, the man is aiming to eliminate. If it's a policeman, maybe he will be thinking of shooting him at the foot so that he maims him and be able to prosecute him. The soldier has no business with prosecuting. So we should understand this different. The training perspective and curriculum differs completely.
But Colonel, you know, the narrative out there too is that the police said they were acting on a complainant, a distress call.
The police?
That's the
Army
information.
or the police?
I beg your pardon, the Army.
Yeah.
So the police have asked them that question. What was the source of this distress call? How come it's not been disclosed up until today to the police who is in charge of internal security? So these are key questions.
These are questions which the investigation will have to unravel. The terms of reference of the investigation should be quite robust enough to be able to give us answers to all this. Some of us out there too are asking ourselves some of these questions.
Why do we have to have three investigative panels?
I just said it here before the Commissioner of Police mentioned it, that it wasn't prudent. I expect to have one investigation panel made up of the Army, the police, some retired personnel, some respected civilians within the community or whatever, and so on. You form a fine, good, robust team on ground that will go out there and come out. We'll pray at the end of the day. The investigation panel from the police will not be saying a different thing. That of the Army will be saying a different thing. That of the Chief of Defense Staff will be saying a different thing. But if we've had a joint investigation panel, I think there wouldn't be counter, reports, all right, so to speak.
One of our guests here on this same matter said there was, okay, maybe let me just, do you agree with the fact of that opinion that said that there is rivalry between the police and the Army? Is there any such thing?
If we say in the past, and when I say in the past, when we never had real exposed officers on both sides, today we have exposed officers. When I mean exposed, intellectually, traveled, participated in international operations, seen it all. Nearly every colonel you see today in the Army has nearly, at least a master's, if not two. Towards the general level, a good number of my classmates who can count about 10 PhD holders. So you have exposed individuals who have seen it all, who will tell you, no, we must subordinate ourselves to the politicians. This is democracy. No, coup cannot work again, and so on. They will educate you because they know, look, don't waste your time. The international community will push you off, and so on. But in those days when we have more or less, I call them illiterates, anything below secondary education, you are still an illiterate as far as I'm concerned. In those days, yes, fine. At the slightest thing, you want to overthrow governments and so on. Today, you don't find such things. We have a disciplined military in place today. And with all this that has happened, I can assure you, when eventually the reports are out, the Nigerian Army has a robust internal disciplinary mechanism to handle the situation.
Many times, just as Mr. Wosheni said, many such
Yes.
things have happened,
Yes.
and we've had panels upon panels of inquiry, and nobody ever really knows what happens, subsequently. So, how do you respond to what? How does the Nigerian listening to us now build confidence in a police that cannot, pretty much do much for itself when its own men are killed, and there seems to be no punitive measure?
I would explain to you. There are lots of things that goes on within the military that the public is not privy to. And why? The fault is ours. The fault is ours because...
Ours meaning the army?
Yes, the army. It's ours because nearly every document in the military is stamped restricted. We restrict nearly everything, even the ones that we should not restrict. I'm not trying to sound a bit liberal because I'm out of the service, but I'm only trying to portray to the public what the true picture is. And so what am I saying? There are lots of disciplinary actions that take place in the military. But because those documents carrying them are stamped restricted, nobody gets to know. People get retired over issues. People are dealt with. People lose seniority over issues. When you are made to mark time on a particular rank for 3-4 years, and your mates have gone ahead, you've lost 4 years or 3 years seniority at a very senior rank. The psychological effect on you, in most cases, you put in your retirement and get out of the place, and so on. All this information never gets to the public. Why? Because everything was stamp restricted. Everything is stamp restricted. I think we should declassify some of these documents so that the public can get to really know that, look, truly the military does a lot that is healthy to the nation, and which we are not aware of.
And they won't be the first to do that. Several other countries' military, they do some of
Yes,
this.
the U.S. Army or U.S. military is a bit more open. You know, we are offshoots of the British, and you know how rigid the British are and so on, And unless, as time goes on, we begin to find officers who see things, like from my own perspective, I would always say, no, I think the public relations officer should relate this to the public, and so on and so forth. Otherwise, if you find some real thoroughbred British officers, they'll tell you, no, why should the civilians know? You just do your job and be quiet.
All right, so there you have Colonel Hassan Stan Labo, retired Army officer. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thanks so much.
Let's head to Abuja. Bakwe.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. We have with us this morning Dr. Okey Ikechukwu, who is the Executive Director of Development Specs Academy. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you.
Well, let's start with this issue. I mean, you are an observer. We are not, we don't belong to the police or the military, but you're watching what is going on in both the, the police and the military. The statements that each have released on this very unfortunate incident, the tragic murder of 3, should we say, gallant police officers now, who, sadly, their bodies now have been brought to Abuja, and we've also seen the videos circulating around. But what do you make of the accusations and counter-accusations that have following the killings of those men?
Miscommunication, individuals acting the way they thought they should, and subsequently the name of the service is dragged into it, whereas it wasn't really what it's supposed to be. I'll give a context to it. First, interagency conflict is not new. Even if you watch American films, if there's an operation going on, you have the Navy, the Air Force. By the time they come in, or FBI and CIA, somebody begins to say, I'm more in charge than you are. So it's not new. Secondly, if you check also our security records, you'll find that the 3 attempted joint operations by the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force, during military rule, they didn't work because of logistics and other command issues. So let us not carry on as if this is new and as if it happens only in Nigeria. No, it happens even in the US, everywhere. You have regular services taken out by drug cartels or bad officers. Now, in the context of the issue before us, what I found of particular interest is that the unfortunate officers who are now demised, the report says that while they were going to arrest the alleged kidnapper, that they exchanged details and pleasantries with the security personnel on 3 different checkpoints, then got to the place, apprehended the man, and were coming out, and then these issues arose, and they are dead. Two questions arise for me. Number one, why were they well received when they were going? With the papers allegedly from the IG accepted, and how come they were subsequently attacked? Of course, what is coming out is that somebody intervened, probably a friend of the man they arrested, and therefore that they're on his payroll. All of these things will be proven by investigation, but there are key issues I want to bring out. The two services, security platforms, have made statements that contradict each other. And both of them are command-structured organizations. You get report from the field, you project it to the public. My take on this is quite simple. It is possible that the report from the army, the men and officers in the outpost, is taken for truth and therefore reported by their superiors at headquarters, and that the emerging facts might change that. It is also possible that the report of the police is not correct. But when we look at the details, you see that it appears the report of the police is more correct. And therefore, the issue now is, before we demonize the army as an institution, or exonerate the police as an institution, let us note that the conduct of specific personnel and officers do not necessarily represent the objective, focus, and end state intended by the institutions. So, knives are afraid. The dead officers are people's husbands, brothers, uncles. It's painful. And men on national duty. So let the proper investigations be done. If we now allow it to get into demonization of institutions, it will also badly affect those who are really suffering, who have to endure the bad repute arising from this, whereas they always mean well for the nation.
Yeah, but I think that also has to do with how the institutions themselves are handling this. Oftentimes, when you see an accusation against, and this is across board, against you know, an individual or individuals or officers within security agencies, and I'm using this across board now, what we usually find is that, you know, those institutions, first and foremost, it's like it's a
automatic reflex of denial.
Exactly. It seems like it's reflex action. They come in strong defense of their personnel without exactly looking at the circumstances first and knowing whether or not this is true or false before they now jump in their defense. So oftentimes, the reputation of the institution affected is usually at stake
because
as
of
well.
it. But let's also note that these institutions, like the last gentleman speaking from Lagos, they are not prepared for the roles they are playing now. Really. And a soldier has no business at the checkpoint. His training is different. His end state projected is different from that of a policeman. And so progressively, the exposure begins to demobilize them as soldiers. They won't know that. What do I have? As a trained soldier, I have, you see, in the civilian environment, substantial compliance is what you need for law and order. Maybe the MD of Channels Television walks in here, and there are 30 of us in this room. Some will get up to greet him, some will not. The GOC comes into a hall. Anybody who doesn't stand up is clearly asking to be thrown out of the service. So in the armed services, you have unconditional compliance. For us, it is conditional compliance, substantial compliance. Now, what I'm leading up to with this is that for them, law and order is a yes and no thing. For us, it isn't. So you have a yes and no institution forced to operate in an environment where discretion is allowed. And there isn't enough orientation on both sides for it to work. So what do you get? Is this sort of situation?
Are you saying then, yes, would you say then that we should begin to also add that orientation into it? Because yes, Colonel Stanlabo made a point there about soldiers being trained to kill, you know, versus policemen who are trained to maim. And increasingly, he's pointed out the fact that indeed soldiers are being invited into internal security operations. At the last count, soldiers were involved in internal security operations in at least 27 states. And they have been, this is not a one-off anymore. It was seen that they now maintain a security presence and are increasingly asked to perform these functions. Should we begin to include that orientation in the training of soldiers, for instance?
No, invariably, not only should it be included, the Army in particular, actually, I'm aware, is working on that. I think the Nigerian Army Resource Center has been doing, but progressively. The issue right now is that there are too many people already out there. The armed services are all overstretched, and the police. There are too many action points, too many theaters, and therefore, to even talk about orientation presumes that you have the luxury of calling people back for that orientation to take place. We don't have that. But the point you're making, which I agree with, is that what has to now be progressively infused into the training is the context, the possibility of a non-military context for military officers. Because war has become asymmetrical, security has become asymmetrical. So what is the basis of that asymmetry? Namely, that part of your daily living could be your challenge. I've been trained as a soldier to take down targets. Now the target has become part of the village because the insurgents are also in villages. I must need a new kind of orientation. But going back to the more fundamental point about the unfortunate incident of the moment, is the allegation that the person because of whom these officers were killed is a kidnapper. I'm sure that is yet to be established, and was duly detailed to be arrested, and that there was some complicity. And so some people have already started saying, you see, this is what the army has been doing with them. And I say no. Priests misbehave. Nurses misbehave, road sweepers, doctors, profession. So when somebody deviates, it does not condemn the profession. The insistence on my part is that somebody has done something wrong, or is alleged to have done something wrong. Let him be fished out. That will reaffirm the credibility of the institution. That will show that that's not what he's sent there to do. No, but if we maintain the current trajectory of trying to show that both sides got it right, it cannot be. One side certainly was wrong in this matter, and Nigerians need to know. And the particular institution concerned needs to come out strongly once it is established. That way you reestablish confidence. Yeah,
but in the meantime, I mean, somebody is already, they're already saying that police-army rift deepens as two panels probe Taraba killings. I mean, we've been told that, reading the story now, it's not been confirmed that indeed the police has set up another investigative panel, but it's a strong likelihood that indeed it has. What is at stake right now is the relationship between the police and the army. How do you think that with this incident, considering the outrage that has greeted it, from the public, but especially you can see the anger on the part of the police. If you read their statements, you can see that they're not mincing words in terms of how they feel about the murder of their men. How do you think that the feelings of the police can be assuaged?
The first thing is to take this conversation out of the public domain. They are not going for a beauty contest or a popularity match. They are in charge of national security, and some level of discretion is required in these matters. But egos are coming into the picture, and that's why we're in trouble. Why should we be generating headlines? We depend on you for protection. Two agencies have a conflict and are trying to see who will out-talk
Yeah, but let us not forget that the family is involved here. The family is involved here. If a video has gone viral on that matter, and also the morale of the men are also at stake here. If they know what happened internally and nothing was said about it, how do you think the policemen will feel?
That's why I'm saying it's a command environment. The police should do, the army, the police should do everything they're doing without necessarily having to be out for headlines. Now, this is a terrible thing to happen. If I'm on my side and we're not communicating, each person will try to look nice before the public. What I'm saying is this. The police has a right to investigate the circumstances on its own. The army also has a right to investigate. Both have the same duty. But there's a commander-in-chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Who set up, who's already ordered that this be investigated? We know that the DHQ is
Well, I have my worries in that regard because he's fond of issuing orders. He ordered that the gridlock in Apapa be cleared. He ordered that kidnappers should stop on Kaduna Road. He ordered that the killings in the mid. So I don't want to get into that. That's not leadership, with all due respect to the gentleman. Something happens. Look, I've had enough of this. I want it to end. Then you go back to your house and sit down. No, that's not it. So there's also the issue of leadership here. But what I'm saying is that the panels of the two institutions are justified in their existence. The police has a duty to explore all the facts available to it and say, from what we found out, these are the facts. The army has a right to do the same thing. Where there are conflicts or where there are concealments, it will emerge. But all of that will be under the overarching authority of the panel set up by the president to establish all of this. Police cannot say, okay, the president has set up. No. they have to review a lot of things. What do you call lawful orders given by the IGP, due clearance at every stage up to the state command, interface with those at the checkpoints before the incident, on return, refusal to acknowledge. You establish all of that, and it has become something you can tender. But if both are eager to put out their report in public ahead of everything, they're only fueling the confusion. Now, for the families, if I'm in the position of the IGP, I'll have a meeting with the respective families, ferry them across a state course, explain what, the things that can be nice about it, and please, this matter, we're trying to resolve it. Remember, their national security depends on the colleagues of our late brother and friend and sisters. It is important we don't keep talking to the press.